Hey, you sexy bitch.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Fifth and final season of one of my all-time favorite television shows, Bates Motel, premiered February 20th, 2017 and concluded on April 24th, 2017. The season consisted of 10 episodes. According to Wikipedia and IMDb, the series is described as a contemporary prequel to the classic 1960 Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho, following the life of Norman Bates and his mother Norma prior to the events portrayed in the Hitchcock film. However, the final season of the series loosely adapts the plot of Psycho. The final season is showing more Hitchcock references than audiences have gotten in the previous seasons. There is a nice little nod to the iconic shower scene in the very first episode. We get our first look at Norma's permanent residence and her final resting place, or at least what we believe is her final resting place. Seeing how it's introduced in the film, of course. And speaking of Hitchcock references, fans were amped up to see Rihanna put in the work to play Marion Crane, originally played by Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh. And if the good girl gone bad has what it takes to talk that talk and take down a rude boy like Norman Bates. Okay, I'm done with the Rihanna references now. Surprisingly, the show does not shine a light so much on the interaction between Marion and Norman, if you can believe that. It is not until I believe, episode 6 or so, where Norman and Marion first have some real interaction. They choose to focus on showing a different side of Marion that we didn't see in the Hitchcock film. Marion is in a relationship with a man named Sam. Sam is cheating on his wife Madeline with Marion. Also, Madeline is forming a relationship with Norman, and is, it's just by coincidence she looks exactly like Norma Bates. And this brings a new drama and a new obstacle and tension to a character that we thought we already knew so well. But before you start thinking to yourself, oh no, the final season is nothing but Hitchcock references, Easter eggs, fan service, believe me, it's not. So don't expect to see, chocolate syrup going down the shower drain or anything like that. But the show does provide some really good and new elements, of course. Norma pops up in season 5, should come as a big surprise to anyone. She's always been a part of Norman's subconsciousness, and we saw in the finale how he would continue to pretend his mother is there to keep himself sane. However, the way Norma is presented is truly impressive. She continues to, feel like a living character, even though she's dead. Highmore as Norman is an outstanding actor. He is really great. We see Norman have one of his blackouts, and I just found it really amazing how Highmore was, there to capture the movement, the mind, the illustration, and overall character of Norma. Also, Vera Farmiga is off the easy. She is the executive producer and Emmy nominee for season 1. She has been a delight throughout the series. But now she is free from the torture of the living, meaning, she is free from rules. She has the opportunity to go crazy and unleash, this, how can I put this? She's crazier than a shithouse rat. That's what she is. And the living life doesn't have to hold her back anymore. I just found it, great acting combined with great writing. Even though Norma has all these issues, you can't help but see how, on the inside she might be a loose. I love that the final scenes of the series came down to a real tense moment, but also a tender moment between Norman and Dylan. When the show started, many of us had the idea that Hitchcock's Psycho was the endpoint for this whole series, and we have an idea of the direction the series will end in, meaning that all the non-Norman characters, Norma, Dylan, Emma, Ramiro, and others would all die, go missing, or etc. Because of Norman's increasing madness, which would leave only him in the end to get caught, captured, and locked up as a loony person who escapes, I spent the first few seasons wondering things like, okay, when does Dylan die? However, once the show began to really blossom into its own beautiful natural creation, it started feeling like it was going to elevate up and out of the idea that Hitchcock's film was its ultimate fate. Meaning the show started out as a prequel, but took a turn with the audience now asking themselves, can the show really end with Norman still having a brother, an ex-girlfriend, with the sheriff on his ass, the police department still after him? As Highmore told audiences, you get to see Psycho played out but in a totally different perspective. In addition, the final season at times is a little funny and a little sad, especially with the very last few scenes in the finale. For example, we do feel sympathy for Norman. On the other hand, it almost plays out like a real dark comedy. It's sort of funny. It's funny how Norman is thinking it's really normal to be covered in blood dragging your dead mother up some stairs and telling her to get ready for dinner. Also, I loved how this series stayed true to the look and tone of the overall Hitchcock classic film. Everything on this series fits right into the film. You take a look at something like the movie Prometheus, a prequel to the Alien films, and that prequel doesn't look like it even takes place in the same world, but how with Bates Motel, it fits right into that classic film that Alfred Hitchcock set up. So, real good set design and tone. I thought that was something that I wanted to talk about for a long time. Terrio, as Dylan, got the finale's big speech. He comes to the motel to meet Norman, who wants his brother's invitation, and Dylan sees his mother's dead body dressed up in a real nice red dress and seated at the dining room table, which makes him vomit. He tells Norman that he has to turn himself in and start getting the help he so desperately needs. And he just really cares about Norman, and it shows in this scene. Norman refuses, and this is where his insanity really kicks in. The two brothers, have a scene together that makes up for some really, really good dialogue, character development, and motivation and drama. It goes out, I have the notes right here. That's what you want from me, isn't it? Norman says. To be shut up in some prison for the criminally insane and drugged out of my mind? I don't know what I want for you, says Dylan. What I really want is something that I can never have. I want you to be happy, and I want you to be well. I want Mom to be alive again. I want you guys to meet my daughter. I want to have Christmases together, okay? I want all of these things to have never happened. It's honestly a heartbreaking speech, but we finally learn what Dylan really wants. Dylan and even Norman come off as relatable because at the end of the day, most people just want to have a normal family. The ending is like Romeo and Juliet. It's sad, but there is joy. It's a heart-warming moment and beauty to be found. So these are my final Bitch and Buddha thoughts on the 5th and final season of Bates Motel. Bates Motel ended with a shining light on the most important aspect of the series, and that's the power of family. Even though this show is a prequel to Psycho, the show realized the power of family, and this was about Norman, Norma, and Dylan, the centerpieces of the show from the very beginning. I actually really enjoyed the surprise ending. It caught me off guard, and the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it. When I first saw it, I was a little confused and I didn't like it, but going back and seeing it again, I realized it showed respect, it was ballsy, and it was respectful, and I honestly really enjoyed it. Every season got better. Everyone's work, including the writers, directors, and actors, they all felt elevated and grew as the show moved through its closing chapters. I'll miss this show. It's one of my favorite television shows, and I just wish this show was more popular with people in the media, and I just feel like, in my opinion, it went a little under the radar. The TV landscape won't be the same without Bates Motel. This show was a real journey for me, and I enjoyed every moment of that journey. I never once wanted to check out of this place. I honestly never once wanted to check out of this whole series. I never once wanted to check out of Bates Motel. All of that being said, I believe the 5th and final season of Bates Motel, if I had to give this a rating, I would give it a 10 out of 10.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
Stick up!